Hey Peter. So I'll try to explain how the project is organized. So let's start with layout files. A100, A200, A300, A400 house architectural plans for all A-type houses, A1 through A4. This is self-explanatory. B100 is a single layout file that houses all drawings for all B type houses, since they are basically the same with only minor variations. G0 houses indexes, location, specifications, and all boilerplate text that is corresponding to this project. G100, I placed all the drawings that Noir initially did, comparing A1 through A3. I included them in the G series since they are general drawings, more than specific to one particular house. Same for G400. That's where all large sections, elevations, plans are for kitchens and bathrooms, basically. G500 are all the enlarged sections, details, the porch details, stuff like that is on this layout file. And the schedule, this Excel file houses schedules for doors, windows, specifications, sheet index. Everything is on this particular Excel file, and it's linked to all these layout files. So if you need to change anything regarding schedules, you can go ahead and edit this file and then update it, and it should reflect whatever you did on this file should be reflected. On SketchUp files, 2D details are all the drawings or little details that are referenced on the G500 sheet. Those are enlarged sections, porch details, stuff like that is on this drawing. A1, A2, A3, A4 are houses, are the A1 through A4 type houses. B is a SketchUp file that houses all the drawings, or not the drawings, but the actual details for the B type, for all B type houses, since they're essentially the same. G400 houses all the kitchens and bathroom details, but I'll show you more detail on this particular file because it's very important, but I'll show it later. Schedule is one main schedule for all the houses. Initially they were one schedule per SketchUp file, but I felt that I was having issues with repetition and different windows and door types with the same name or slightly different, so I opted to take it out of each SketchUp file and just make one SketchUp file with all doors and windows. That way we would minimize having those kind of issues. And Site Master is the site drawing. I'll show it later with more detail. So let's continue with I'll open one of these and go through the way this one's built. Let's post this. So this is the A2 type of house, and let's start with the way this is supposed to be structured. So this layers are self-explanatory, but say for instance dimensions, most dimensions are in here. Same for titles. Titles are mostly drawing names and things like that. Room name, I know room name is a shared layer because I share this between this sheet and the electrical layout sheet. So in here are room names and master annotation, let's call them, like arrows that show direction of travel for stairs and things like that. Grid elevation and grid plan. For grid plan shows, it's not exactly grid, but that's the way it was called initially, but it shows all this section and elevation markers, detail markers, things like that. Those are shared between this architecture and this electrical sheet. And grid elevation, if we go further down, let's go back, is essentially this big block that shows master elevations for oral stories. So model as essentially viewports for SketchUp references. And on north and title block, well, let's turn them on and off. This is the north arrow, since it's on plan but off on elevations. And the title block is the title block essentially. Most of the text inside this title block is, there's no need for you to edit. I would say there's no need for you to edit any specific text, since, for instance, the drawing number, I'm gonna take the I'm going to unlock it. The drawing number is derived from, if we go into document setup and go into auto text, there is drawing series. This would be the drawing series, sorry to repeat, but you edit this here. Say for instance, this is going to be, instead of an A200 series, is going to be a G0, then you change this text inside the document setup. And the next number is basically the consecutive number on these sheets. So you only need to change this through document setup, and that's it. The drawing title is derived from here, from the sheet name, architectural floor plans. You change it to whatever. If you remove this, then this changes. So you may need to change revision, although I'm not sure. Yeah, this is set up also in here inside document setup. This was set up by Nuvera, and it's very well set up. Date is today's date, or the date the drawing is opened. So there's no need for you to edit this. So that's why this is, on most drawings, it's locked. As far as dimensions, which is something I need to show you, since if you recall, this is set up on a 3-inch grid. Since there's no center line for many of these walls, what was done here was, if you select the viewport, you can go into the SketchUp model. You can turn on grid 6-inch. That's the reference for most of these elements. So for instance, if I go in and double click, I try to keep most of these elements inside a group just for organizing. So if I go here, in this case there's a reference, but on many there is not. So this was very strictly done to a grid, although right now I'm seeing a small error, but we're going to fix it right now. I'm going to select this guy and drag it here. So I would say 99% of the project is set up to this 3-inch grid. So I turn this on whenever I need to dimension, and turn it off as soon as I'm finished. Sorry. What else can I tell you about this? There is some line weight set up here. Say for instance, doors and windows are half a point or half of the actual width of the entire viewport. Same for let's say fixtures. Same for furniture. It's 50, but gray, so that it doesn't show that much. This was done on one viewport and then copied over to all others, so that it would look a bit better. This guy's here, dimensions, general dimensions. Sorry if I jump between. Since this is shown on all drawings, or on most of the drawings, this is probably done inside either title block or inside inside Legends finishes. These are okay. For electrical, there's one specific layer called Legend Electrical, which is turned off on most drawings except for this. There's this white box. It's just as a way to hide all these guys, which are repetitive between sheets, and not to create another layer or additional complexity. So I masked this out with this black box. As far as elevations, these were Nora didn't dimension that much. I didn't either, but essentially we have slab thickness or floor slab thickness, final thickness, and since to make this as universal as possible, we only included this as an absolute measure or as a way to set up the house, since this is the only measure that they need, and as soon as they start laying out, then they can start from 0. This is going to be 10 feet, 20 feet. Made more sense to me to have a relative measurement from the 0 point than to have absolute measurement. It was easier math for me to do. All of these is set up from the A2 in this case, SketchUp file, and most of these stuff is done from here except for this. This is, if you notice here, this is referencing. Let me select it so that it's selected here. Sorry. The schedule SketchUp file. I made this a global drawing, and if I needed to create one additional window tab, then I would place it here. This is essentially the same for all houses types, and this table and this table reference the Excel file that I showed previously, but in this case I'm not referencing an entire sheet but only a range. So you need to open the Excel sheet and review that this range is the same or that is correct, corresponding to the actual house. And let me go ahead and open the Excel sheet so that we can review that. So here we have all this data that was done by Nora, project data, all this stuff. The only place that I did stuff in was the sheet index, which is referenced by the G0 series of drawings. Doors and windows, that's what I was just telling you. So this is type A1, so when you go into layout, then you'll see that the range that is referenced is from A2 to D31. If you go into the A2 series, then it's different. It would be A32, D61, and so on. Same for room finishes. So say for instance, house type A1 through A3. The range is A3 to G18. And keyed finishes, that's only referenced, I believe, in general drawings. So let's jump into a SketchUp file. So let's do this with A1. Let's start with layers. These are self-explanatory, but let me turn this on so that we can see different elements. So we have architectural elements, conceptual, it's called like that, conceptual elements. So the first, second, third, and shell. Electrical, 3D, I'll show it to you later. And this up A and up B, I'll show it to you in a minute. And our neighbor is a layer that's only turned on for elevations, which shows blocks for our neighbors so that our elevation has some context. If we go in and turn on, let's turn off our shell. This is inside our conceptual layer. We can see the inside of our model and our first, our second, our third story for the house. And these are, if you see, these are supposedly placed on our layer. I'll review that. But anyways, so I believe this is self-explanatory. Ceilings, which are our ceilings, our cladding. If you turn on our shell, is our cladding. Doors and windows, floor, furniture, roof, stairs, and walls. This is fairly simple. One important layer I want you, in case you have not figured it out, is our 3D layer. So in order for layout to display something that resembles a floor plan, most symbols or blocks or components have a 2D and a 3D component. Our 2D component is this, which is symbol for a bed. On our 3D component, same thing. So say same thing for our bathroom. So we have a 2D and a 3D component. The 2D component will assume whatever layer or tag, it's placed on. Our 3D component will always be 3D. So that's important for you to have. What else can I tell you about this? We tried to keep blocks or nesting to a minimum to make it easier to edit. So maximum 3 levels of nesting on most drawings. So this is our wall. There's no groups inside the wall. It's just raw geometry inside it. And unless there's a need, most of these will be inside layer or tag 0. Let's jump into this option A and option B refers to since on A-type houses there's 2 options for the garage. We have option B for the one that goes in through the left and the other one through the right. So that's what this refers to. Our main grid is our main axis for our house, and our grid 6 inches is the one that we turn on or off whenever we want to dimension. What else do we have here? So let me jump into another drawing. So this file is G400. It started out as our detail or enlarged detail or repository, but it ended up being our master drawing. The reason is, if you have worked with SketchUp, you'll notice that whenever you reload a component into another file, you end up getting a lot of number 1, number 2, number 3 definitions of the same thing, which is essentially the same thing. And I wanted to reduce that as much as possible. And since this house has, or this project has, all these houses have many components that are essentially the same, whenever I reloaded one thing into another, or one component into another, I would end up with a lot of those number 2, number 3, number 4 definitions. So what I ended up doing in the end was, this grid shows all variations of all houses, and they share the same component definitions for most items: doors, windows, toilets, electrical items. So whenever I do a change, I try and do it in this file, and then go into the other one, or into the specific house file, delete the content of the component, replace it with this one, and that way I don't get as many repetitions, or if I get repetitions, I get them into not the master file. So if you notice, this is named as A3, A2. This A1, A2, A3 is really A1 type. A4, B1, 2 with B9. So these are all variations of all houses in one file. So whenever you want to make a change, try and make it into this file, not into the specific house type. That way you avoid having many definition repetitions, if that makes sense. If we go in here, you'll probably get some, but not many. Let's show a list. So I try to keep this as organized as possible and avoid as many number 1, number 2, number 3 definitions as possible. There'll be some, but not that many. So that was done, or I did this, say for instance this one, but it's minimum. So I did this in order to keep this as consistent and as organized as possible. Anyway, this holds, each one of these is a component. If you notice, it has a name that makes some sense, and this component is repeated into each individual project type. Seeing something weird here. This is not on its correct layer. I'm going to fix it. Done. But this is what this file is for. It's not only for those details. Okay, and the site master drawing, Noera initially had it, or set this up using Xrefs and a lot of good stuff, but what I was noticing is that this file did not change that much. So in the end, what I did was I just let me turn on everything. In the end, what I did is I just reassembled each house from each of the, say from the A1, kept the reference insertion point, which on most houses is this corner. Oh, sorry, got in. Is typically one of these corners, and just copied and pasted. That, I know it's not ideal, but it's, since this is going to be done not that many times during the life of the project. I felt it was easier to do it this way than to try and reinsert, reload. And the thing with reloading is you bring in a lot of unneeded information like sections. If you have drawings outside the actual house, you bring that as well. So I opted to not do that and just copy and paste into this drawing. That way I also, before doing that copy and pasting, I would purge all unused definitions by going into model info and going into statistics and purge unused. I would purge as many layers, components, material definitions, and styles that I would not use, and then paste inside. That was done here. This is my schedule file. This is only one drawing for all of the project, since you managed to get only a couple of windows and doors for the entire project. So this is done here and only here. If you want to add a window, then you go in here and add it here, and it'll display on each house. But since this file is referenced on all layout files, this file holds the 2D details are essentially enlarged details for all the knots or for all the vertical, horizontal element unions. And it's fairly simple to structure. Right here is just the detail, which is mostly 2D line work. And if you turn this off, dash detail, and turn this on, you get just a 2D drawing extracted from normal, or from the actual model of, in this case I believe it's A1 or A2, but this is typical to all houses. So Nuera had initially like 3 layers, start from general, from middle to detail. I removed one of those and just left it as general drawing, which shows this, and then callouts that reference the detail. And I felt it was easier to understand and more condensed. It shows here also all the details you developed with Nuera regarding advanced framing and all our decking stuff, and same for our typical wall sections. I do feel that this may need a bit more referencing, but you let me know, and if we need to, then we can change that. What else do we have here? I believe this is our base. Let me jump into another drawing. So this is our B-type house. This may need a bit more explanation because it's a bit more complex. So currently we are seeing both houses, or 2 houses next to each other, but if we turn off site neighbor, then we'll only see one house, and that's where we may need to work whenever we do any further work to this. Since most of these stuff is components, the mirror is just a mirror of each of these components, so it's easier to understand. There's one extra layer, I believe, which is this one, that'll show the elevation for the corner house, which is the only difference is this extra cladding and the extra eave for the roof. So that's the only complexity regarding this particular house. So I think this is a general review of what was done to the project, in case you need to understand, or in case Nuera needs to understand whatever was done to the project. It's essentially the same structure, but I did go over some stuff to try and simplify it a bit. So if you need further explanation, please let me know. And no, that's it. So thank you.